Hello, my name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Catacris Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.catacris.com. And today it's my pleasure to be speaking with lead singer Alfonso Civile, and he's from a lead singer from the band Heartsick. How you doing today, Alfonso?
Good, man. Not too bad. Enjoying the sunshine here in Michigan before the sun goes down.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm here in sunny Southern California, near the LA area. But anyways, I was reading your bio today and prepping for an interview, and I see that you're originally from Puerto Rico, and I was kind of curious. Did you live most of your life in Puerto Rico? Did you come to the United States when you were pretty young?
No, I actually kind of traveled around a little bit, and I ended up in the United States in Miami, Florida when I was 6. But before then, I was born in Puerto Rico, and then I lived in Germany for a while.
Oh, wow.
Dominican.
And the reason I was asking, I was kind of curious, if the music, in your homeland where you grew up, if it had much effect on you, if you were more influenced by the music when you came here to the United States.
Actually, both, because most of my life growing up in the United States and living with my parents, they were really, our first language is Spanish.
Wow.
And my parents were really into the music of both of my home countries. So for us, I grew up listening to a lot of like salsa and merengue, but my dad is a really, really big rock and heavy metal fan. So I grew up listening to not only Spanish music, but to Stevie Ray Vaughan, Metallica, and a lot of blues. So it was a pretty eclectic household when it came to music.
Well, it sounds like you had a great childhood as far as getting to travel around, and that was kind of going to be my next question. Is coming from Puerto Rico and traveling kind of around, how you kind of got to be a fan of rock and metal music. So your dad was a big part of it, sounds like. And let me ask you, as far as metal bands, I was curious. Were you ever into Sepultura? And I think the reason I'm asking is kind of obvious, yeah.
I mean, but I honestly didn't discover Sepultura until I was like a sophomore in high school, and it was because of a buddy of mine that I was in a band with who was wearing a shirt and kind of just showed me Chaos AD record, and I fell in love. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Sepultura is one of those bands that, especially if you're Hispanic, it really just you because of all the drums and sort of the sounds that are in those records. Yeah,
and as far as your dad's influence you on music, what are some of the albums were in his collection, so to speak, that he kind of turned you on to?
My dad was a really big fan of Led Zeppelin, so anything Led Zeppelin. Literally anything Stevie Ray Vaughan. My dad's like the biggest Stevie Ray Vaughan fan in the world. Wow. Muddy Waters.
Oh, great.
Big that, and then most of all Metallica's catalog he was really into. Aerosmith. All the classics.
Pretty eclectic right there. That's pretty interesting. Now, another question kind of pops into my mind talking to you, being that you're originally from Puerto Rico and Hispanic, and that was your first language, I'm assuming, is Spanish. So how old were you when you first started learning English? The reason I'm asking, I'm kind of curious, listening to these American bands, and a lot of them, are obviously English-speaking records. So what was that experience like, getting turned on to music like that?
My first language, believe it or not, was actually German.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. I spoke German before I spoke English or Spanish. I forgot German when I moved to the United States, and then speaking Spanish and English. Growing up in Miami, Florida, you use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
So the language was always something that kind of always played an influence on me, just in music in general.
Yeah.
Even in Miami, with all of the bands that were coming out at the time when I was in high school, bands like Non-Point, bands like Hendo, stuff like that, Scrape and everything else, it was all Spanish and English from time to time. At shows, the bands would speak Spanish to the crowd at times, but then most of the songs were in English. So it's definitely played a role, but it never felt difficult because I grew up in a household where both languages were used all day, every day, at the same time. It always interchanged. And then in the neighborhood that I grew up in was a real big Hispanic neighborhood. So all of the parents and the grandparents living in these family units in Miami spoke Spanish, but all the kids going to school all spoke English. So I was exposed to it all the time.
Oh, that's cool. And being that you're, lead singer in that, I'm assuming you're one of the primary songwriters in the band. So as far as when you first started writing songs, even before you were in, this band that we're talking to you about today, I mean, did you immediately start like writing your songs in like from English or other languages you were speaking, or was that at all difficult for you learning how to write songs speaking different languages?
No, not at all. I mean, for me, what really turned me on into like writing music and writing like music on guitar and writing songs on guitar, not just lyrically, was Weezer. I just enjoyed the simplicity of a band like that.
Wow.
That whole first Blue record was just, it's like every song on that record is a hit, and that really taught me a lot, and I really drew a lot of influence on just being able to craft really good songs, but that almost anybody can play, because that's a really hard skill to acquire, and it seems like Rivers Cuomo was on that already. And when it came to like writing lyrics, most of my schooling, through grade school all the way to high school, we all spoke English.
Yeah.
So I had to really grasp on the language. I like the fact that like I can interchange in songs from lyrics into Spanish into English, and be able to draw from that influence, and also kind of bridge the gap, because we tour in Puerto Rico. We've toured in Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
We have a Puerto Rico. We've gone to play shows there. So it really works out. If you know the language, it just makes you more relatable. On top of it, really makes the crowd feel, and the people there feel like you understand the culture.
Yeah, of course I know that, in the current band, you sing in English and stuff, but like when you go over to your homeland, like there in Puerto Rico, like you said, you've been several times, do you ever sing any of it, just kind of for fun and do something different? You ever sing any of his songs in Spanish?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have some songs on. We've got we're working on a bunch of new music, and going over to Puerto Rico and touring over there was a really great experience for me, because that's like my home country.
Yeah.
And it really influenced, how some of these new songs came about. So I kind of went back and have written some songs just lyrically, some lyrics in Spanish, and then when we were there, absolutely, I would speak the language, and just for fun, to sing, some of the words in Spanish, because it's nice to have that familiarity.
Oh yeah, I mean, and even like when you go home there, and just kind of like I said, it's not so different there, but you just for you as a performer, it's a kind of I get to do a different type of a show here than what I typically do. It's got to make it that much more fun, for you, I would imagine.
Exactly.
And I think I imagine as a writer and a singer, it's got to make you that, and the fact that your influences are so varied and different, that it just makes you be able to do just so versatile, different types of music. Man, it's just it's so interesting talking to you, and now your band is called Heartsick, and I was curious because I know one of the hardest things is to always is come up with a band name. How did you guys come up with that? Because it seems like a pretty cool name, pretty simple though, not too much to think about.
Yeah. So that came about sort of almost out of necessity and equally out of respect. So before we were named Heartsick, we were named No Life. It was spelled KNWLYFE.
Okay.
And we ended up getting some new managers that were some of our friends who were in the industry, and one of them used to be the guitar player in a band called Straight Line Stitch.
Oh, okay.
The other manager was the tour manager for Trivium and Miss May I. So, we became friends with these dudes, and we kind of went through sort of like what we wanted to do with the band, and the topic had come up of changing the band name. Now, that's something that had been in our wheelhouse about changing the band name for years, because No Life had been together until that time for about 15, 16 years.
Oh.
Mind you, everybody in the band is the same band member from No Life minus our drummer. The reason why the name change came about is because our drummer, Matt, passed away.
Oh.
He passing away, and we ended up getting a new drummer. And when our management at that time had offered, what about changing the band name, we were very hesitant at first, because we've been a band that's same dudes in the same band since we're all 18. We're all about 39 now.
Yeah,
we've been in a band for about 21 years.
Yeah, and you talk about starting over. Yeah, I could imagine that must have been very hard to do. Wow.
So, and this was in 2014. So when you said that, we were kind of hesitant, but we looked at the big picture and said, nobody really knows who the hell we are right now anyway, still on the larger aspect. So we said, okay, and our old drummer who had passed away really never liked our original name, which was No Life. So we kind of were like, it'd be a cool way to honor him, and it'd be sort of a fresh start.
Yeah.
So that name came about. We chose the name by basically all of us wrote down band names, and we made a list, and whoever had the same, and then we chose the ones we liked the best. And we said, whoever had the same name 4 times in total, like in this list, that'll be the band name. And one of the names that appeared 4 times was Heartsick. So we're like, okay, well, Heartsick.
We all agree. But yeah, and it's kind of fitting, you know, for what you just told me about the drummer, you know, passing on. I imagine that time you were pretty heartsick, not just over your friend and your bandmate passing, but it's like, how do we carry on without him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really heavy blow, man. It wasn't something that we obviously, you know, expected. I mean, that was definitely not when it happened. He had been, before him, the only other drummer we had was the guy who started the band, and Matt had been in the band for 8 years by that time. So, you know, losing it really felt like, when you're a band and you're close and you're best friends, it really felt like losing
a brother, I bet. Yeah.
A brother, and it was really tough, man. I mean, it really, you know, we didn't really come to terms with it for a few years, you know. I mean, all of us had a different grieving process, but that was really tough for sure.
And I was curious, is any of the music you guys, you ever like wrote a song about him or about, you know, how it affected you?
Absolutely. So the first record we put out under the moniker Heartsick was a self-titled record. And there was a song on that record that's called December Note, and that song's completely about him. Oh
wow! Well, what a cool way to pay tribute to your fallen bandmate, you know. And wow, that's just impressive. I was also reading on your bio, Alfonso, that you're also into martial arts, and I believe you're an instructor. So, you know, you're into all this great music. You're a musician, songwriter, singer. So, how did you get into the martial arts originally?
Yeah, so I'm actually a 2nd degree black belt in judo, and then I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I've been training judo since I was 9. I'm 39, so quite a while. And then jiu-jitsu I've been doing for about 6 or 7 years. I got into martial arts because when we moved from Germany, my dad was in the Army. He got out of the Army. We moved to Miami, and the neighborhood that we moved into Miami was a really rough neighborhood. My parents, you know, I don't come from money. My parents were pretty poor growing up all my life. Very blue-collar, working class, you know, middle, lower class family. And the neighborhood that we lived in was a pretty rough neighborhood most of my life. So I ended up getting into a lot of, like, fights in the neighborhood. It was kind of the neighborhood that I was, like, if you were the weakest link, you were going to get picked on. And I got picked on mercilessly.
Wow.
Mercilessly for many years, for about 3 or 4 years. And then finally, my dad just got really sick of it. And he got sick of seeing me get beat up and coming home with black eyes.
Wow.
So he was like, whatever, I've got a friend who teaches judo, and you're going to be his student. And so basically, since we were poor, my dad couldn't pay his friend to teach me. So what they did was they basically made me an indentured servant. My dad told my sensei, my instructor, my master, he said, you can have him whenever you want, do whatever chores or whenever you want, as long as you teach him. And my sensei was like, I'll teach him for free. So every day from when I was 9 till I was 18 or 17, I did judo, and I whatever my sensei needed, from cleaning toilets to like setting up mats. That's what I did, man. But it kept me off the streets. You know, a lot of my friends were dealing drugs and joining gangs and stealing cars. I was in school and training martial arts.
Yeah, I love that. You know what else I love about that story? It also it kind of shows you know the importance of having a work ethic, and I can tell your dad taught you that. Just the story you told me there, because I mean, so many people today are so entitled. And I can tell just a story. You know, your dad raised you like that to even though you can afford to pay the guy, okay, son, you're gonna earn your keep. So he needs help.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important these days.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was going to ask you, so getting into martial arts and music at the same, how many of those, like, you said you were picked on for so many years, and I can kind of relate to that in many different aspects, but I was kind of curious, like, once, you started getting a reputation, hey, you better watch out for him. He's been taking, jiu-jitsu lessons or whatever, and he first time somebody seen that you kicked some, you were able to defend yourself. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday, man. I'll never forget it. Again, growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, you're really growing up in the streets and in the hood of Miami. So, realistically, the only way that you would stop becoming a target was if you demonstrated that you could hold your own. So I would always get into all these scraps with all these neighborhood kids and would always lose. And finally, when I was about 13 years old, I was getting picked on again by the same bully or whatever, who ended up becoming my best friend.
Amazing. I love that. And
yeah.
And then I was curious, once you started getting
into a fight,
wow.
And I beat him up, and that was it. I never got picked on again.
I bet he'd want to be your friend after that. But also on that level, I was kind of curious. Once you started getting into bands, and maybe some of these people that picked on you early on, once at any point did any of those people like say, oh, hey, can I come see your band? Or, they want to start hanging out with you all of a sudden? Or at all, just through being in bands and writing music? And did it ever bring you close to people, you know what I mean?
It's funny because the music really did, and only because I didn't start joining a band. I didn't start the whole band sort of thing until I was in high school. I was about 14. So by then, I had demonstrated that you shouldn't pick on me because I got into, so people after that, it was just kind of like the high school years. But the people that did pick on me in the neighborhood have become some of my best long life friends, But I mean, we were kids, man.
Yeah. That's why they
from hard, hard families that were just all immigrants trying to make it in a place they'd never known, in a new country. So it was, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances on why that had happened. But definitely those friends that used to pick on me and now are adults and are seeing the success of the band, they've been really supportive. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like you say, I mean, it happens for different reasons. You call it growing pains, but I imagine a lot of those things you experienced when you were younger have made for great songs, it's given you great inspiration for some of your lyrics.
Absolutely. I think, I think with anything, with any artist, with any artists that are worth a grain of salt, I think you can always hear the pain or you can always see where that sort of torment comes from, Yeah,
it doesn't even necessarily have to be pain. It could just be something that, happiest day of your life or, about your best friend. But, I hope you don't mind me asking. The reason I am talking about all this is I was reading your bio, like I said. I thought, oh, wow, it's, very interesting story, and I wanted to find out more about it. Now, getting into the band, obviously, which is why you called to talk to me, the band is Heartsick, and you guys got a single and a video out I was checking out called Thrill the Hunt. Now, just talking about the video for I'm kind of listening to the lyrics and the song, and kind of there's a message to the song, obviously, and basically the message I got is kind of a story about, a guy that maybe had a gun he was playing with, he hurt somebody or killed somebody he doesn't mean to, but it's kind of, the message is, this is what could happen when you play with guns, or when you have a gun around. And so talk about, about what the song means to you and about making the video, because the video, I will tell anybody, it really looks professional, like something you might have seen on MTV back in the day to me.
Yeah, so everybody in our band are really big horror movie fans. We all love horror movies. We've been horror movie buffs for a really long time. But I've always really been fascinated and intrigued by serial killers. It's something that I've always just really found fascinating.
Okay, wow.
And found, the psychology behind those types of people.
Yeah.
Psychology is something that really interested me. So the song is actually about Ed Kemper, who was the first recognized prolific serial killer in the United States that kind of started the FBI's
profiling people.
Unit, serial killers, yeah. So
wow.
song's really about Ed Kemper, and the sample that you hear in the song, that's actually Ed Kemper. We took that sample from a YouTube video and put it through some filters, and that's Ed Kemper basically explaining like how he came to be a serial killer, you know, by fantasizing and having all these things. So the song's literally about Ed Kemper. Like, I'm just fascinated by these people who seem to be crazy but are so normal. And at the time, I was watching a show on Netflix called Mindhunter.
Oh wow!
It's a really I love that show, and it just kind of lended that sort of inspiration to the song.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're into stuff like that, speaking of Netflix, I recently saw this like mini-series on Richard Ramirez, the Nightstalker, and it was kind of interesting, just not just to see like the way his mind worked, but I mean, he actually had some crazy woman that at the end of the day, before he died, you know, was married to him the last several years of his life, you know, and then the guy ended up dying in prison of, you know, cancer. Didn't even get the death penalty like everybody thought he was going to, and you know, that's another story in itself. But it was kind of interesting too to see. You watch the miniseries and you see, I mean, they use actual, you know, archive footage of a guy, you know, when you know, when the chase scene is going down, you know, in real life, when all those people in that neighborhood, they came together and they were the ones that kind of took him down. And and even after that, you know, the guy goes to court and he's like showing the Pentagon he drew on his hand and all that, acting crazy in the court, and it's just crazy to see in real time. And then also, I remember back in the day when that was going down, you know, being from LA here, you know what the news reports at the time, they were making, you know, when he was still on, they were making a big deal that he wore an AC/DC hat, and he listens to metal, you know, he must be a devil worshiper and all this, and he was playing right along with that, you know. Yeah, but I gotta say, the video, I love it, and just hearing what it's really about, because like I said, I watched the video, and because that little message you guys put in there, I kind of got something totally different. But that's cool too, because you know, I didn't really get the message of what the song was about, but it had, what I got was like, hey, don't play around with a gun, and you know, you could hurt somebody. But I dig that different people can listen to the song and they can get different things out of it.
Of course, and I mean that's really the beauty of music and the artist. I mean, it's all left up to interpretation. And that's what that's cool, you know, like that's, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's the best part about any sort of art. You can interpret it however you want. Whatever it means to you is fine, you know. And
you know, Alfonso, just talking to you today, after you know, I get done talking to you, I'm gonna go later and you know, look up this guy on YouTube or whatever, or, you know, the internet, just because I've never heard about this. You know, he's a serial killer, and I heard a lot of serial killers, you know, Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy. Never heard of that guy for whatever reason, but I'm like, man, the fact that Alfonso took the time to write a song about this guy, you know, he wants to educate me on something. It's just like one of my all-time favorite bands is the band Tesla. I knew nothing about Nikola Tesla until I got into that rock band, and I always dig that as a music fan, learning stuff, you know, when you listen to music.
Yep.
And so I just got to tip my, now, are you guys working towards, I assume, like do you have a record deal in place? Are you working towards that?
We have a very small licensing deal. It's a very boutique label that our buddy owns, but we don't have like a full-fledged deal. We've never really had any sort of like legitimate record deal. We've always kind of been a DIY band. Yeah, you know, I like, we absolutely have connections that we sort of try and shop what we're doing to labels. But I like, at the same time, it's one of these things where it's like, the goal for us, like any other artist who wants to be heard, is to put what we can out there and do as much with it as possible. If a record label approaches us that really likes us, that has some, you know, that has some pull, that has some more of an identity behind them, that can do more for us, great. And at the
same time, you don't want to lose it.
It's not the end all of end all. It's one of these things where, like, we've been doing just fine on our own, and if we can build this bigger and bigger on our own, then so be it. But we absolutely have been trying to get a team together with the record label that can really do more for us. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, because there's a couple of reasons I asked that. I mean, number one, the publicist that you have at Set Up Interview for me to talk to you guys. Usually she gets me bands through this label that she works for, and that's why I was asking. And they're a pretty decent label because I won't name the label, but the point is, like, this guy that was in a pretty big metal band himself, he started up this label to help other up-and-coming artists, and they've got everybody from 90s alternative rock band Candlebox to metal acts on there. So I just think it's great if you were signed to such a label that it's a label that hopefully would help want to develop you, but that's very important. Keep in control of your own music, because I mean, even a band like Motley Crue, it was only maybe 10 years ago that Nikki Sixx finally got control of the band's music. They went through a big legal battle with their record company for years, but they finally got control of their music. And see, if somebody can rip off a big band like that, you got to watch out when you're one of the little bands, up and coming.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, we would absolutely love to join a team that really has our best interest at heart. Whether that happens or not up to us entirely. We're definitely working hard, and we're going to keep pushing what we do. But I feel, as an independent band, the things that we've done, we've been on the Billboard charts, we've been on national tours, we're on rotation and radio stations. I mean, so talk a little about some of the bands you guys have toured with, because there's some pretty big names. Yeah, we've toured with Every Time I Die, we've toured with 36 Crazy Fish, we've toured with King A10. We've got a tour hopefully coming up, once COVID sort of starts going further into the norm, per se, quote unquote, in September with Cane Hill. We've done tours with El Nino. So
you guys got no shortage of tour offers. And I will say this, see, that's the other reason I was asking about, if you were signed to a label, because I tell you, the publicist that you're working with, she sent me a great little press release on the band. It included the video. That's how I found out about you guys. And that's pretty impressive for a band, that's kind of out there, kind of doing it on their own. And the fact that you're not signed to a label, and you've been on the Billboard chart, and you've been on all these big tours and shows with these other bands that are quite established. I mean, that's pretty cool that you're getting your music out there, even though you're not on a label. And I really have a lot of respect for what you guys are doing. And final question, I guess, is, do you think at some point, like is the plan right now to, like, when you get a new song, like, just drop a single each time you guys record a song? Is a plan to maybe eventually get enough songs that you have enough to put out a CD?
Well, we actually have more than enough songs to put out a CD. Since COVID, we've been recording brand new songs since about 2019, and then when COVID in 2020, we've just ramped it up. So right now we have 16 songs completely done. We have more in the bag that we're about to go record. The plan right now is to release, 3 or 4 of those songs, maybe put out a CD with a cover or something with those songs on it.
Oh, cool.
And then kind of see where that goes. See if we do get picked up by a label. And if we do get picked up by a label, we already have 2 records worth of material that we can push and get to. So, right now the plan is definitely to release singles the next few months and see how we can build that up. Put a lot of marketing dollars into it. Put a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
See where it goes,
Okay, and you mentioned, at the top interview that you were kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. So I was curious, how old were you when when his plane or his helicopter went down? And do you remember hearing the news and all that?
I really don't. Like, my dad is a really huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. So, I remember, listening to his records and always listening to his records with my dad, and him telling me that the guy had died in a plane crash. But I think I was still I think when he died, it was like 1984 or something like that.
No, it was like maybe 94, 90, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I don't really remember, because I wasn't that big.
I got you. Okay.
Dad was.
So,
My
oh,
dad
okay.
told me everything. He's got like all his DVDs, and I mean that guy. I mean, it blows my mind that that dude was as good as he was then. Because imagine how good he would have just been. Like how much big. I like arguably Stevie Ray Vaughan is bigger now than he ever was when he was alive.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was just kind of at his prime then, and then he kind of died right when he was really getting big, and he came from a musical family too, because he had an older brother named Jimmy Vaughan. He's still alive, but
Yep.
they actually did a record together, and I guess Jimmy used to play in this band, Fabulous Thunderbirds. So he had a little bit of a musical family of his own. So I just want to say it's been great getting to know you, Alfonso.
All right, take care, brother. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
it's been great talking.
Bye-bye.